Hi, Scott McElroy here, and I'm going to be talking about, in this video, about the 3 data files that you actually get out of the Sphero data collector. They're going to come in as into your Google Drive account as CSV files, and so you can see we have an acceleration CSV file, a position velocity data, and a summary data file. So in these CSV files, you can just open them right up into Excel and be able to manipulate them from there and do any type of analysis you want to do. Also, you can actually save them as Excel files if you would like, rather than simply leaving them as CSV files, because CSV files, if you manipulate them, you can't save any graphs or figures or coloration or anything you do in the Excel file when it's open in Excel. So let's look very quickly at the data. So in looking at we'll just bring this up. Obviously, I've already opened it up. Here's the acceleration data. Bring it over where you can see it. The acceleration data just has the X acceleration, the Y acceleration, and the Z acceleration. And what these acceleration, so I'll talk about velocity. Acceleration is different from velocity, and the acceleration is the change at every increment in which you're measuring. So we're measuring right now at a 42 hertz data rate. So that's 42 measurements per second, and it's giving you the time in which these measurements are coming in milliseconds. So you can see it's very high data rate, getting a lot of data per second, and this is the change that's actually occurring. So you're going to see this going up and down. So the X acceleration is just be how the ball moves back and forth along a path. The Y acceleration is, it has to give force to begin to move forward, and then a negative acceleration is it trying to maintain a certain speed, and then the Z acceleration is the up and down movement of the ball itself. Okay, so but it's coming in per second, and it's not a total. It's not like the velocity. It's an acceleration in each of those individual. It's what it's doing in each of those individual measurements. Okay, so you can look at the velocity data as well. I already have that open as well. So we go to the velocity data, and same thing. You have the name of the file that you saved it under in the Sphero data collector. And then when you look at these, you get the X velocity, the Y velocity, the total velocity, and the X distance, the Y distance, and the total distance. And right now, these are true values, and we have some other things that have been changed around that you'll see in the files you download. But these are giving you the actual speed at which it's achieving. Okay, so the Y velocity is really the most important, because the ball is trying to get up to a certain speed at this point, and what's happening with Y velocity is it's finally achieving that speed. You see like 61 centimeters per second at that point, and then you can see the time it takes to achieve that speed as well. The total velocity is the sum of these two, and then you look at the X distance it travels in a back and forth direction, the Y distance, and then the total distance is actually traveling. We don't have you cannot calculate from the Sphero an actual Z velocity. Okay, and the last thing, which is probably the most interesting value that people are interested in, is going to be the summary data. And the summary data gives you the averages, the range, the minimum, the maximum, the variance, and the standard deviation of not only all those variables we just looked at, but also the distance variables. So we have X distances, we have Y distances that are actually being collected, and Y distances is really the total distance that you are collecting in a forward direction. The minimum distance, the range, the variance, and then we're calculating several other things as well. We have the total velocities that are actually being calculated, and one of the more interesting things is the total accelerations that are actually being collected. So we're looking at these, and we'll talk more about these in other videos about what the vector product actually is. but we're actually looking at the ball, how it's moving in three-dimensional space for a given surface. So if you have an X, Y, and a Z component, it's actually moving along that surface within a three-dimensional space, and we're able to capture how the ball is actually moving within that space. Tremendous amounts of data here that are being collected in the data summary file. Sorry, I should have slid this over a little bit. In the data summary file, you not only get your trial ID variables that you're putting in, the total time it took for each run in milliseconds, your hertz rate, and you can also enter a stimp speed as well that will be input in here, and you can do any type of analysis from that point forward. So that is our Sphero data collector. Those are the files that are actually collecting, that are actually be input into your Google Drive folder.